So we'll dive right in. We'll get right to it. I tried to do a bunch of, you know, I put out the call for action the day before. What do you want to hear? What questions or whatnot? That gives me some time to do some research. So I've got some good notes and everything written down here based upon the questions that everyone has. And then even for a couple of the questions that were relating to food, I went ahead and have already had a phone call this morning with E.C. Sinkowski from Optimize Me Nutrition. So we've got some answers coming your way is what I'm trying to tell you. All right, let's see. First question. Okay, if we are going by how we normally do it, which is most likes, then Mr. Nick Bilk, get the top question with 19 likes. Nick says, if you were invited to man the desk with Sean and Tommy in Aromas this year for the CrossFit Games, would you accept? The short answer is, yeah, of course, sure. I would absolutely accept to be alongside those two fine gentlemen. But here's the caveat to that, is that in accepting that role, I would be accepting a ton of work and time needed to prepare for that. I'm not saying anyone here does that, but I think can be a common misconception that, I don't know, if you like the games and the athletes, and well, that's all you have to do. You don't really do any preparing. It's not like a real job. You just show up and you're going to talk and get paid to do it, and that's that. And that is certainly not the case. There's a huge amount of behind the scenes analysis and preparation and comparison and so much so that it's almost impossible to keep it all in your head. So you have to have incredibly detailed and logical and well laid out notes and timelines and guides so that under pressure, when somebody does something during an event or on a commercial break, you can reference exactly what you wanted, what they did 2 years ago in a specific event and exactly how it compares to what's happening right now, and that relates to the other person in the previous heat that did this. It is a challenging job, like, for sure. And you have to do all of that live in real time and make it look like you're not scrambling. So you have to scramble and make it look like you're not scrambling. And that's an interesting difference between occupations that require a live performance on some sort of media and occupations that don't. And I'm not saying that, they're just different. There's the potential that if you're working at your desk and you have to scramble or you get frustrated or you can't find something, well, the good thing about that is the world's not watching you scramble and look frustrated. Whereas if you're on TV or live on the internet, you got to look calm, cool, and collected the whole time. So there's a fair amount of juggling that goes on with that. All right, so it's a good question. Yes, I would accept, and yes, I would immediately have a ton of work to do, for sure. All right, so that was Nick's question. That was a 19 likes. Then we've got a couple 12s. Let's see if anybody can beat a 12. We've got a 13. Can anyone beat a 13? No, 13 is the next winner. 13 is from Colin. Let's see. I know CrossFit as a fitness pursuit/sport is infinitely scalable, but do you think all people should be performing the barbell snatch? Obviously, it's a super technical movement with wonderful benefits, but I feel like that movement is more responsible for injuries than any other movement, and a lot of people do not have the shoulder mobility to perform it correctly. What's your opinion on the benefit to risk ratio for the snatch? Ooh, good question. Let's walk through it, shall we? And where the heck are my notes on this? Okay, so, correct. Infinitely scalable, yes, and we'll touch on that. What's going on with my light here? Okay, infinitely scalable, and we'll touch on that. It certainly is, and I think that is a big deal that needs to be addressed. And super technical, yes, arguably the most technical lift you can do with a barbell, for sure. Wonderful benefits, yes, correct there as well. Then I do like the word choice that Colin has. He says, but I feel like that movement is more responsible for injuries than any other movement, and a lot of people do not have the shoulder mobility to perform it correctly. The word choice that I like that he used there is I feel, not I know. And this is not a personal attack on Colin. I think he did that properly. I don't know if you can say that, quite frankly. I don't know if anyone, you may have your opinion on what is or isn't banging some folks up. And the snatch may be in there, something else may be in there. So like they said that he feels that way. So there's nothing inherently wrong or dangerous or anything about the snatch at all. But it is demanding of a very high range of flexibility, which also happens to be one of its benefits. If you don't have the ability to get into the proper position for a snatch, which would be, pulling from the ground and then receiving it in fully below parallel in an overhead squat, a technically competent overhead squat, then you could make a strong argument that you probably shouldn't be snatching. If you can't do a beautiful air squat, a beautiful deadlift, a beautiful power clean, and a beautiful overhead squat. Now, they don't have to be perfect, okay? Even a lot of people who think they lift perfect do not. They just need to be safe and technically competent. And if they are, we'll go ahead and start working on the mechanics for the snatch. But if you don't have a good overhead squat and don't have those other movements, there's no point in going down the road to the snatch yet. But there is a lot of folks out there whose overhead squat is just fine, and those other movements are just fine. Could they be better? Sure, they're a work in progress, but they could snatch. So if you don't have it, if something is actually going on with your body, you can't get into that position, then you need to figure out what that is and correct it, or embrace some other movements until you can figure out what that is. There's no point in forcing a bad position just to say that you're doing the movement that is prescribed that day. So there's a quick answer right there. And without going down a rabbit hole, if you see someone in the bottom of the snatch, the receiving position of the snatch, so they're in an overhead squat, and maybe your gut feeling is to say you don't like how they look overhead, and that person's shoulder flexibility is preventing them from having a good overhead squat, a good snatch. That might be true. It might be. But where your eyes are drawn to where the barbell and the shoulders are, that might not be the cause of why that person doesn't look good, quote unquote, in that receiving position. And it's probably down in the foundation of the hips and the ankles. A lot of times if you see somebody and you don't like how their shoulders look in an overhead squat or in a snatch, it's probably that their shoulders are probably internally rotated, which we don't want. We'd love to have them externally rotated. But their torso is probably so far forward that it does not look good and isn't in a good position. And that forces their arms to be back in a weird position because the barbell has to stay over midfoot or it's going to fall onto the ground. It has to stay over the base of support. So if you can't have your torso nice and beautifully upright and it's forward, then your arms are going to get pulled back and it just looks funky. And you're like, ooh, that person shouldn't be in that position. And you could say, ooh, that person doesn't have the shoulder flexibility to get there. But truth be told, their shoulders are probably more in an exaggerated position to the rear that they would have to be in than if their torso was upright. If the torso was upright, their shoulders wouldn't have to be that far back. So they may, this is just me speculating, they may actually have ample shoulder flexibility to perform the snatch, but it might be, like I said, that their hips and ankles don't have the flexibility needed to get their torso nice and upright, and therefore they're overcompensating with what would be considered an immature squat, and their torso is very far forward. So that's something in my mind that probably should be addressed. And then this is going to shock everybody, but I got off track, went down a rabbit hole here from my notes. So now, should everyone snatch? Okay, that was kind of the general question. I mean, with the word everyone in there, no, probably not. I mean, you can be fit for the rest of your life and not snatch. Okay? But if you have the ability to do it in a safe manner, then the benefits are tremendous. The benefits to your body and to your mind, meaning your central nervous system, because it's a thinking person's lift. So it's not only going to benefit you head to toe in an organic sense from muscular development, range of motion improvement, but you're going to have to engage your brain to make sure your body's moving in the proper sequence. So there's a huge amount of benefit. And if you could reap those benefits, well, then I absolutely think that you should. But if something's going on with your body that you have to force it, well, then that risk-reward doesn't work out. But the other part is, I mean, if you didn't do it, you would be sacrificing the world's fastest lift, most technical lift. Range of motion's pretty much maxed out, right? You're pulling something from the ground, getting it overhead and standing it all the way up. And then, like I said, the demands in the body and the brain are absolutely tops. Tops for a barbell, right? So then there is that whole point that we've discussed before, that's the toughest thing you can do in the world with a barbell. Even intermediate gymnastics is more difficult than darn near anything with a barbell. So there are certainly plenty of other ways you can challenge your mind and body, even to a more challenging degree, without having a barbell in your hand, if the snatch was not for you. But if you could do that, great. And then infinitely scalable. So a lot of times, potentially, if somebody's tweaking themselves with the barbell snatch or something else, then the next question has to be asked. Let's say that their technique it's fair, it's serviceable, okay? You know, it's not going to win any awards, but it's not unsafe. It's just a work in progress, like most people's technique is. And so gets tweaked doing it, okay? Our hypothetical athlete gets tweaked doing it. Did the snatch tweak that athlete? Or did a poor decision tweak that athlete? Meaning, does the responsibility lie in the movement, or does the responsibility lie on the individual? And in my personal opinion and observations, frequently it's the individual and it's not the movement, because some sort of bad decision was made. You can, if you can barbell snatch an empty barbell with no problems whatsoever, and 50% of your 1 rep max with no problems whatsoever, 70% not so bad, but when it gets super heavy, you get wonky, then you try to go for a PR to look good on Instagram, and then you overextend yourself, do something that you shouldn't have tried, and then you tweak yourself. Well, then who's to blame for that? Is it the barbell snatch, or is it the individual? If that individual had just stayed with a light weight and worked on technique for a couple of years, would we be blaming the barbell snatch? Probably not. So again, there's usually a lot of facets to what's going on there, and I think personal accountability goes a very long way. And I think more people should spend more time on technique and less time on chasing big weights, and a lot of potential issues may be resolved or never even manifest if that was the case. But unfortunately these days, there's just pressure to get really good really fast in everything that you do, and very few things in the world allow you to get very good at them very quickly if they require both speed and technique to do well. This is again, I'll prevent myself from going down another rabbit hole, but there's a whole lecture about this at the level 1 called the technique lecture, which was one of my favorite lectures, and it's, a lot of the points that I just made are in there, and it's quite applicable. Okay, so that was that question. I'm going to cross it off the list here. Boom. That was from Colin. So, what is our next question? Let's see here. So that had 13. 13. Do we have... There's some 12s, I know that. So let's go down and see what we've got for the 12s. We've got two 12s. One of them is more of a humorous question, and one of them a bit more of a serious one. So I'll address the humorous one first. They're both from Amanda Smith. The humorous one is, tell us about your Murph strategy / experience, and also on a scale of 1 to I can't pull my shirt over my head, how bad is your soreness right now from Murph? Okay, so believe it or not, so Murph was on Monday, right? Today is Thursday. And then on Tuesday we did Annie. Yesterday we did 5 sets of 2 deadlift. I experienced very little soreness from Murph. Very little soreness. My chest was a little sore from just all the push-ups, but that was about it. Other than that, I felt pretty darn good. Might have been a little tired because it's a long workout, but I didn't have crazy soreness at all. And I think that is largely from I pushed hard on Murph, like I exerted myself, don't get me wrong, but I didn't try to just burn it down to the ground and set a lifetime PR. Didn't want to do that. And I didn't want to do that because I know that leads to unspeakable soreness, and I did not want to have unspeakable soreness. A lot of times what's going to give you unspeakable soreness, if you're not prepared for it, is the intensity of the workout. So for example, I could do 100 air squats and not be sore at all, or I could do 100 air squats and be very sore. So it's not the workout, it's the pace in which I did it. So if I did 100 workouts over the course of the day, and I just did 10 air squats every hour for 10 hours. And so that's it. 10 air squats. I wait to the next hour. I do 10 air squats. By the end of the day, I did 100 air squats. I'm not going to be sore the next day. So it wasn't the 100 air squats versus I'm going to do 100 air squats as fast as I possibly can, and you do them in around 2 minutes. You did the same amount of work over the course of the day, but one took you 10 hours and one took you 2 minutes. You're going to be very sore from the 2-minute effort. So the intensity factor, and the workload and the movements obviously play a role, but the intensity factor is huge. So I went ahead and I executed Murph, but I executed it at a good pushing myself pace, but not a wreck myself pace. And because of that, I feel pretty good. So it was a win-win. All right, and here's our second question. How does one go about making their sit-ups faster? I feel like people at my box are always flying by me with the sit-ups no matter how fast I try to go. And this is most likely came by because on Tuesday we did Annie, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10 of double unders and sit-ups. And Amanda, I am there with you. Oh, stand by 1 second. I'll be right back. Stand by. Okay. I'm back. So goes, life with kids and things of that nature. Sometimes you just gotta take care of some stuff. So we're back. Getting quicker at sit-ups. I am in the exact same boat that you are. I'm just, even after all these years and all these sit-ups that I did in various portions of my life in the military and whatnot, I'm steady and consistent and I can knock them out, but I'm just not a fast sit-upper. And I used to work out with an individual by the name of Charlie Doobie. He used to annoy me all the time. Great guy. But I don't know why. He didn't practice sit-ups, didn't do anything, but the man was just blazing fast on sit-ups. And we could get to a certain point in the workout at roughly the same time, and he was gone. And I was just there, da-doon, da-doon, da-doon. And I feel like I'm trying quite hard, and it's taxing me. And that's just what I got. But my best advice is also on Annie. You don't know if some folks are doing unanchored sit-ups or they're doing anchored sit-ups. You can place your feet under some dumbbells or something and anchor them. That's not right or wrong. Just you want to make note of how you did it so that the next time it comes up, you can make sure you're doing it in a similar fashion to actually track your progress. But if you did have the goal of faster sit-ups, I would recommend working them. So work them maybe once or twice a week. Pick yourself a rep range of sit-ups with the goal of executing them quickly. And you could also have some variance in there as well, with every now and then doing a longer set at a slower pace. Maybe you're going to do, I'm just picking numbers here, you're going to do 100 sit-ups in just a slow, steady grind. And then the next time you practice sit-ups, you're still going to do 100 sit-ups, but you're going to do it as 4 sets of 25, and you're going to try to rip those 25 really fast, and you're going to rest a couple minutes between each to get some time for your body to recover in there. And then the other part of the variance is working that midline. Hit the midline in a whole bunch of other ways. Make sure you're not neglecting the accessory work with the L sits, V ups, toes to bar, knees to elbows, all of which can be done kipping or strict, hollow rocks, GHD sit-ups, the whole 9 yards. You just gotta get after it. Okay, that's sit-ups there. Let's see. So that was a 12. 12 upvotes there from Amanda. Now we've got a 10. Can anyone beat a 10? Can anyone beat a 10? No, it does not seem that anyone can. So where's the 10? From Anthony. What's your new favorite book? And he put in quotes, fiction. Anthony, how dare you? Obviously, he's asking that because, one of the things that I post regularly on Instagram stories is coffee and nonfiction. I like my coffee and whatever my nonfiction is currently, because I really do enjoy nonfiction. And right now it's Long Walk to Freedom, Nelson Mandela. It's definitely a hefty book, about 620 something pages, and I'm making my way. I'm on 240 right now. Try to do 10 pages a day, and then eventually just knocks it out. But I always say coffee and nonfiction. I never say fiction. So he's asked me what specifically my new favorite fiction book is. Man, I don't have a new one, to be honest with you. I think the last fiction book that I read, that I did very much enjoy, but the last one that I read was probably 5 or 6, and it was that book, The Martian, by Andy Weir, I think you would say his last name. They made the movie with Matt Damon. When the movie came out, I heard there was a book, so on and so forth, and I got the book, and the book was excellent. I thought it was a very entertaining start to finish read, but that's probably the last non-fiction book that I read. Other than that, last fiction book that I read. Other than that, it's been all non-fiction. Okay. So that was Anthony's. That was a 10. Now who's winning after Anthony? Let's see. Some 5s. We've got a 6. Okay, we've got a 6. Here we go. Question about nutrition. Oh man, here we go. Let's see. Erkin. How do we balance CrossFit workouts with intermittent fasting? Does this sound like a good or bad idea? CrossFit itself is a catabolic reaction, right? So will it be a bad idea to combine CrossFit and intermittent fasting if we would like to build muscle? Great question. Common question. And I had my opinions on the matter, but I wanted to make sure that I was giving you the best opinions possible, and therefore I reached out to Eva Claire Sinkowski from Optimize Me Nutrition, because she's a food genius and a nutrition genius, and I highly recommend you check her on her website out. She's phenomenal. Alright, so here's what she basically had to say. So the question relates to intermittent fasting, with their thought being, is that potentially a bit muscle wasting, so to speak, in CrossFit? Building muscle, and are the two opposed, and should they be done together? So how can you manage that? So she said, intermittent fasting, and this is a summary, it's just that. It's intermittent fasting, meaning you're not doing it every single solitary day of your life. Intermittent means just that. Some people do, obviously. But intermittent fasting is all about controlling when you eat. And that can be independent of when you work out. So therefore, if you do have the opportunity to control both, you ideally, if you were looking to do both and you were looking to get the most out of both, then it would be great if you could manage and navigate your day that you are doing your working out when you're feeling the best and the most energized, which for a lot of people may not be during the fast. So let's say if, a very common thing to do is people stop eating at 7 p.m., they go through the night, they skip breakfast, and the first time they eat is around 11 a.m. the next day. It may not yield the best results you working out at 6 a.m. It may yield the best results that you're working out at 4 p.m. after you've broken the fast, and then you could have potentially the benefits of both. So that might be a good way to do it. She said, an oversimplification is, if you're starving, or feel like you're starving, and you've got that feeling in your body, that's usually not indicative of a type of feeling which most people are going to be able to go very hard and maximize their intensity. And the intensity piece in general, again, this is an oversimplification, but the intensity piece in general is mission critical to the results that we're going to get through doing CrossFit. And so if you are intermittent fasting and you've been doing it for a while and you know how you feel, if at a certain point of the day you feel a little less energized, and another part of the day, maybe after you've consumed some food, you feel a little more jazzy, and that would be able to allow you to express more intensity in that workout, then ideally that's when you would do that. And she also said the interesting thing about intermittent fasting is it's not magic, it's just generally portion control in a relatively sneaky manner. And so why that might be beneficial for weight loss, lowering some blood sugar levels, things that people are chasing, it's not that it's effective, but it's not some magic pill. It's most people, if they remove a large chunk of time, a time window that they're not eating, ideally they'll be consuming, it's caloric restriction in a bit of a disguise. Now, if you violate that, and you do what some folks do, which is you fast, and then during the time that you are eating, you just make up for the time that you didn't eat, or maybe because you're so hungry you even eat a bit more, then you're potentially not going to get from the intermittent fasting what you hoped to do. So that's it. And she said, an interesting part of it as well is the CrossFit works high intensity, is such a key part of CrossFit, and it works so well that what you hear is true, that let's say during a 15 to 20 minute high intensity workout in CrossFit, your metabolism revs up so much that it stays revved up for a nice long period of time after the workout. So if bringing that intensity to the table is done in its best form when you feel the best, maybe after you've eaten, that might be the best time to work out, versus you try to work out while you're fasted, you get an overall less intense workout in because you just didn't feel up to it. Your metabolism doesn't rev up as high for quite as long, and then when you break the fast, you wind up eating what you would have, the same, density, the same amount of food if you hadn't fasted, or even a bit more. And so you just have to make sure you are being honest about all those different variables and manipulating them and managing them in a way that meets your goals. The two can coexist, but you just have to be disciplined about that. Okay. Hopefully that helps. And like I said, go check out EC from Optimize Me Nutrition. She's a guru. All right, that was a 6. What do we have here? We've got a 5. Okay. Oh, it's another food question potentially. There's 2 5s. Okay. So let's do non-food, and then we'll go back to food since they're both 5s. So the other 5 is from Sean, who says, do you have any tips from your experience on how to remain consistent and motivated while working out from home. I love the way Linchpin approaches fitness and this entire community, but I do struggle with consistency and finding the motivation to work out alone at home. Common question, for sure. Okay. I had a lot of thoughts on the matter. I had to scratch them down here. How to word this? Let's see. First of all, to work out at home, I don't think there is a magic answer that's going to just be an aha moment and have you do it or make it easier, okay? Working out at home, like so many other things in life, like figuring out your nutrition, it's simple, but it's not easy. Simple, not easy. The simple thing is, it's almost just like the Nike motto, right? Like, you got to do it. You don't have to overthink it. You just have to do it. You have to make it a priority. So when I think about working out at home or whatever your goals happen to be, you've got to figure out, write them down on paper. What are your priorities? What's important to you? What are your goals? And then you have to reverse engineer the life that you want to have. You have to execute the plan. So just words and thinking like, man, I'd really like to be in shape. That's great. If you write it down, you look at it every day, that's an entirely different deal. So write it down. So most people, I think, my personal opinion, most people would want to be fit and healthy. And I'm not just speaking physically. Most people would want to be fit and healthy physically, emotionally, socially, financially, and then professionally. You would like to be fit, healthy, competent, mature in all of those areas, right? And I feel that's a relatively fair statement. While most people would nod that, yeah, that's what I want. I want to be fit and healthy, physically, emotionally, socially, financially, and professionally. While those are their words, their actions, if you had like a little drone secretly follow them around all day long and film them, their actions would most likely paint a very different tale than their words. So most people say that they want those things, but the life that they live every day, it's almost like they're sabotaging themselves with the decisions they make, what they prioritize over something else, the foods that they choose to put into their body, etc., etc., etc. So I suggest you lay down your goals, lay down what you want to get out of life, and then, as if you were mapping it out for somebody else, again, reverse engineer it. What are the steps you would actually have to do to make those goals happen in those various areas? And then you have to execute the plan, and that's the difficult part. But if you're seeing it there on paper, if you pin it onto the wall, if you actually have laid out the steps that you need to accomplish them, that at least gives you a plan to follow. Because just saying, man, I'd love to work out. I hear a lot of people say that. Now, if somebody else says, man, I'd love to work out. Okay, what do my days normally look like? I got to deal with this in the morning with either the commute to work or getting the kids going or whatever it happens to be. And middle of my day normally looks like this, and I've got a meeting here. End of the day is this, pre-COVID. Got to get the kids to sports or whatnot. And, where are my windows of free time? Whatever that happens to be. Whether that's aimlessly surfing the internet, which all of us do more than we would like to admit. And if we did have that little drone following you, I think you'd be shocked at how much time you waste during the day, myself included. How much time is spent watching Netflix. How much time is spent in just nonsense, really. Human beings excel at spending a lot of time in inefficient nonsense. And there's no judgment when I say that. We're all guilty of it. And you can become a superhuman, a super productive human if you are honest with yourself. You identify where those areas of nonsense are, and then you just have to make a decision. Are those areas of nonsense, which I bet you would be shocked to find how much time they add up to during the day. I bet it's over 90 minutes easily. Is that how you want to spend that 90 minutes? Or would you rather spend it pursuing one of these goals that you mentioned. And then what does that look like? Does that look like you having to get up earlier 3 times a week? Does that look like whatever the Netflix series is that you're so engaged in, you decide to stop watching it because something else has been deemed higher on your priority list? Does that mean instead of taking lunch, you can eat lunch at your desk while you're still going through your emails and then recapture that 30 minutes somewhere else and apply that towards your fitness or whatever it happens to be? There is usually a way, if you do a very honest, brutal assessment of how you spend your time, there's a way to fit it in. And then laying out a plan, making sure that you understand it's a priority, reading it to yourself every morning so it stays in the forefront of your mind to keep you on track, can be a good thing to do. I personally like to get things just out of the way. Get it done. That's me. It may not fit your life that way. We did a podcast on this before, which was the pay now or pay later kind of a thing. I always like to pay now. Just get it done now. Walk out into the garage now at the very first opportunity that you have. If you have an opportunity, seize it. Walk out, knock out the workout, because life has a very, very maniacal, devious way of adding things to your plate as the day goes on. An unexpected email rolls in. This phone call totally derailed you. Suddenly you have a meeting. So if sometime before the day it's got a head of steam going, you can get it in. And then you have won the day. It just, in my opinion, gets harder and harder to do as things pile up and you'll think you'll do it later. So contemplate doing that. A support network is absolutely huge. If you don't have that power, at least right now, to be that self-disciplined and do it on your own, that's fine. It's something you're working on. Go ahead and get yourself a workout buddy. A 1, 2, 3, however many you need in a little group text message or through our, the Linchpin private Facebook group or whatnot. People have reached out there before and started little accountability buddies. And when you're feeling down in the dumps or demotivated, reach out. Don't be a hero and think you got to do it all on your own. Reach out and let the power of the community pick you up and motivate you to do it. And I would also say just remove the pressure to make all the workouts perfect. That can be another thing, right? I don't know, walk out there and get in the perfect workout. Just start walking into the garage and just do the workout. And like I said, maybe you don't run the clock. Maybe you modify it a little bit so that you enjoy the workout more, or whatever it happens to be. Just start walking out there and take the pressure off yourself. It doesn't have to be perfect. And both good behavior is contagious and pattern forming, and so is bad behavior is contagious and pattern forming. If you miss a workout and have a crappy day eating, it's really easy, the next day to be like, yesterday was a wash and I don't feel good because I didn't work out and I didn't eat good, so it'll start on Monday, so I'll skip today as well, and the diet starts tomorrow. That can compound in a very quick and very negative manner. But the opposite is true. If you do finally break that cycle and you 1, 2, or 3 days in a row do tune up your diet a little bit, and you do walk out in the garage and get in that workout, then that starts to make you feel a little bit better, even though it may not be easy to walk out into the garage, even though it might be more fun to sit on the couch and watch Netflix. You start to feel a little bit better. Your self-confidence starts to rise a little bit because you're making these good decisions. And ideally, little by little, it makes walking out into that garage and making the more sound nutritional choice just a little bit easier. So, yeah, that's it. And quite frankly, that relates back to why I personally like nonfiction more than fiction. I think a lot of the topics that we just discussed right there become easier. The discipline to walk out in the garage, the discipline to do whatever, to manipulate your schedule, become easier through a focus on personal development, through improvement of the self, through identifying your own strengths and weaknesses, and through a focus to ideally try to shore up some of those weaknesses, which in turn makes you a more robust and capable human being, ideally, and then that allows you to execute and achieve a lot of the goals that right now might be eluding you. So personal development is something I also would say is a great thing. It's a great path to go down. Okay. Oh, holy cow, we've been on for 45 minutes. All right, I'm going to try to get to a couple more here. All right, let's see. So that was a 5. The other 5 is from Alex, another nutrition question. Suggestions on gaining weight, muscle, that is. I know some people will roll their eyes, but it's extremely difficult for me to gain weight. Is it worth trying to go into a calorie surplus and count calories, or not worth it? And should I be doing like a specific weightlifting program? Great questions. So I once again reached out to E.C. Sinkowski, asked her, and she said, yes, if that is something that you struggle with, and I do truly believe that it is just as hard for some people to put on 10 pounds as it is for others to lose 10 pounds. I believe that struggle is real. Life's not fair. Most of us would probably, love to have one of those problems over the other. But if that is the case, she recommended trying to eat about 1 gram of protein per your target weight, and don't make that target weight initially more than 10 pounds away from where you are. So let's say right now you weighed 160. She wouldn't recommend that you suddenly say, my goal is to be 220, so I'm going to eat 220 grams of protein a day. Like, no, start a little bit smaller. So if you weighed 160, again, keep your target weight about 10 pounds away. So let's say it's 170, and you try to go for 170 grams of protein that particular day. You will want to be in a caloric surplus, she recommended, to include both carbohydrates and fat. And in that caloric surplus, try to lean a little bit more heavily towards the carbohydrate more than the fat. And tracking what you eat would certainly benefit you, because there's a good chance that if you struggle with gaining weight, that maybe, this is not a fact, but maybe you live a lot of your days in a caloric deficit, which might be your norm, whether you realize it or not, and it could be easy to slide back into that norm unless you are actually diligently tracking what you're eating every day to try to ensure that you are in a bit of a surplus. So that would be it. And with regards to the lifting, in general, if you're trying to put on some size, some hypertrophy, things in the 7 or 8 reps to 12 reps range are going to be your friend, okay? Not sets of 20, 30, and 50, not so much the 1s or 2s, but if you're just looking to put on size, put on mass, 7 or 8 to 12 reps is where you're going to want to be. So what you could do is, when our lifting days roll around, of which there are plenty, feel free if you want to modify the rep schemes. And there's also, plenty of that in the accessory work as well. And maybe if, like yesterday was 5 sets of 2 deadlift, maybe you're going to do 5 sets of 7, 4 sets of 8, 3 sets of 10, something like that, so that you're going to more hit that rep range. And you could play that same game with back squat, shoulder press, so on and so forth, to get into that zone that ideally will help you achieve those goals. So that might be something, you are authorized to make those manipulations to the rep scheme if that is a particular thing that you happen to be chasing. Okay. One more. Let's see. Did I miss anything? Questions here. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Thumbs up right back at you from everybody. Let's see. Casey, I'm not sure what she was talking about, but she said this is 100% for me. Y'all helped me with this not long ago. I don't know what it is, but since I haven't checked the comments while I was running my mouth, but I'm glad it worked for you. Let's see. Rick Wagner, let's see if I can extend your question. Stand by, Rick, stand by. Let me see if I can find something here. Expand the comments to see what you're saying. Rick, unfortunately, the Facebook on my phone is only allowing me to see half your question. Let's see. Cindy says the best advice I ever got was let yourself be a beginner. That's probably, I would assume, back when we were talking about the barbell snatch. Haley says EC is awesome. Yes, I completely agree with that. Okay, all right, so far so good. All right, so we'll take one final question here, which was, stand by. I know I saw it. There is a 6 there. We got it. There's a 5. 4. Okay, here it is from a 4. From Richard. Richard Wall. Masters specific training, as in 50 plus. Okay. So, this is highly unique to the individual. That has to be the opening statement. Highly unique. Not all, let's just say 55, okay? Not all 55-year-olds are the same by a long shot. I mean, heck, not all 35-year-olds are the same by a long shot. The life you've lived, your athletic background, how your diet and sleep has been for decades is all going to come into play as to what volume of training you're going to be able to maintain, what intensity you're going to be able to maintain, the amount of recovery that you're going to need to excel. But in general, most of the training, can be done as we age, either as prescribed or with just a slight modification based upon loading or potentially repetition range, based upon that individual's needs or preferences. So, for example, let's say the workout of the day is run a 5K. And that's the workout of the day. Well, what's a 35-year-old going to do that day? What's a 55-year-old going to do that day? They're both going to run a 5K. And if now we're just being stereotypical and talking in generalities, what will most likely happen is that the 35-year-old will run, depending upon if they're a good runner or not, 8-minute miles, and the 55-year-old will run a bit slower. And that's workout accomplished. They're not necessarily going to run a 4.5K or a 3K. They're in general going to be able to do that. Now, do you have bad knees or something like that? Well, then we can put them on a bike, we can put them on a rower. But it's a relatively easy fix. Single modality, right? That's why I started with that, because it's relatively simple. Okay? Workout of the day. Yesterday's workout. 5x2 deadlift. What's the workout of the day for a 35-year-old? 5x2 deadlift. Trying to lift whatever they can lift that day, the heaviest weight possible that is still safe and within their capacity as an athlete. What's the 55-year-old going to do that day? 5x2 deadlift. As heavy as they can go, that is, here's the important part, safely within the limits of their capacity. It's the same workout. It's not a different workout. Now, what if we get into a mixed modality workout? We're talking something like Helen. 3 rounds for time, 400-meter run, 21 kettlebell swings, 12 pull-ups. 35-year-old's going to do Helen. 55-year-old, there's plenty of 55-year-olds that could do Helen. They could do the 3 rounds, they could do the 400-meter runs, they could do 21 kettlebell swings with the 53-pound bell for the men, 35 for the women, which is prescribed. And then you've got 12 kipping pull-ups per round. Plenty of 55-year-olds will be able to do that. So they would just do the workout of the day. And it may take them, let's say, 90 seconds longer than the 35-year-old. Whoop-de-doo. Fitness was achieved, all good to go. And if the training is well varied and well rounded, and we're doing everything from short, sub 2-minute interval work up to long workouts, then that 55-year-old is still going to get everything from very short to long to medium and everything in between. They're going to lift the weights which are appropriate for them based upon their range of motion and their ability. Have them stay safe, push themselves, but have them stay safe. But then if something needs to change, the change is generally not that challenging, okay? So let's say that the 55-year-old is banged up and they're very similar to myself, can't get their arms over their head for a kettlebell swing, or maybe the 53-pounder is just a bit too much for Helen. Okay, so they swing a lighter bell. Maybe that solves the problem. Boom, Helen, solved. Maybe they can't go overhead. Maybe the 53-pound bell's fine, but they can't go overhead. No worries. Ideally, they're working on keeping themselves loose and limber and stretching and trying to improve that overhead position, but maybe that day they stick with the 53-pound bell and they just do a Russian swing instead of an American swing, so it goes to eye level. Boom, easy day, solved. Or they could go do a Russian swing and scale the weight as well. Pull-ups, maybe, kipping pull-ups just don't treat their shoulders well, or they've lost the ability to do pull-ups or whatnot. No worries. They can do a ring row, infinitely scalable based upon where you put your feet. I mean, heck, you can make them harder than pull-ups by elevating your feet and putting them on something. So we can do something with a kettlebell swing that will fit most folks. We can do something with the pull-ups that'll fit most folks. And if they can do the 400-meter run, great. But if they've got bad knees or ankles or hips or whatever it happens to be, then we can put them on the rower, put them on the bike, have them do something which is no impact, and we can make a version of Helen that will work really well for them. It will preserve the stimulus, and it will get them incredibly fit. It will serve all their needs. And we can play that same game with DT, with Cindy, with whatever it happens to be. Now, if we take like a more challenging workout, let's say something like Mary, right? So Mary's a disgusting workout. AMRAP 20 minutes, 5 handstand push-ups, 10 pistols, which are one-legged squats, then sets of 15 on the pull-up bar. So AMRAP 20 minutes, 5 handstand push-ups, 10 pistols, 15 pull-ups. Well, let's say at 55 years old or whatever, you're not kicking upside down, you're like, I'm not going to do handstand push-ups, etc., etc. That's perfectly fine. We can preserve the stimulus and grab a pair of dumbbells or a barbell and do a standing shoulder press. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other things that we could do as well, from pike positions on a box, shoulder taps, etc., etc. But let's say they had no interest in being inverted whatsoever. No worries. Barbell, dumbbells, shoulder press, be it strict shoulder press or push press. Easy day. Pistols, 10 one-legged squats. Maybe that's just flat out not happening, period. And there's a lot of people that struggle with that at 21 years old. You can assist by grabbing like the upright on a pull-up bar rig or something like that. Give yourself an assist to do a one-legged squat to compensate for some balance and some strength issues. You could have a band from overhead on the pull-up bar and use that to assist you on both the way down and the way up. You could have all of those things and like a medicine ball behind you that you're going to go touch that with your butt to a seated position and come back up for a little bit of support. Or just don't do pistols at all. You're going to do some air squats. You're going to do 10 air squats. If at 55 years old, compared to your peers, you're doing shoulder press instead of handstand push-ups, 10 air squats per round instead of 10 pistols, and 15 ring rows instead of 15 chin-over bar pull-ups, and you're doing that for a 20-minute AMRAP, you are a ninja compared to most other people in your peer group walking the earth. You're doing fantastic. And, maybe you can do the handstand push-ups but not the pistols. Like, you can only modify one part but not the other. Maybe 10 air squats, you're like, well, that's not quite as challenging as 10 pistols. No worries. Grab a 35-pound bar, put it in the front rack position, and do 10 front squats with a 35-pound bar. Over the course of a 20-minute AMRAP, you will not be shortchanged, etc., etc. So we could play this same game with darn near anything, with whatever it happens to be. And the other part of it is, again, depending upon the older athlete, all the little things that maybe you could have a wider strike zone with when you were younger, you're not going to have a wider strike zone. how you're eating, how you're sleeping, stress management. Are you taking care of your body? Are you stretching? Are you actually taking rest days? Are you modulating your intensity and volume based upon how you actually feel? Are you removing your ego and making smart decisions? And if so, a long, wonderful career of working out is in your future. And then, I will say, I don't know where I am. 44 years old. I'll be 45 in August. I'm not young. I'm not old. I feel good. And while I'm not above 50, I do actually think I'm probably not your typical 44-year-old, just based upon the miles that I have put on my body. My body feels older than it is. So while I can't relate exactly to being a 55-year-old, I have, I broke my pelvis. I've got plates and screws holding my pelvis together. That was about 20 years ago. I don't recommend anybody does that. That one injury in and of itself changed the entire course of my life, changed my entire structure and how my body moved and my level of pain, and that affected other things. It affected my spine. It affected the gait in which I walk. When I broke my pelvis, it was such a bad break. I also had to have skeletal traction, which sucked. So skeletal traction means just above my right knee, the bottom part of my femur, right above my right knee, they literally drilled a hole through my leg, through my bone, pounded a steel rod through my leg, and then, used that to take a little bit of pressure off my hip. The recovery from breaking my pelvis was terrible. The recovery from the spinal traction of them drilling a hole through my femur, it destroyed the range of motion in my knee for a very long time. It's still not great. That hip's not great. I have a terrible neck from not just motorcycle wrecks, but having the boats bounce in our head during SEAL school, during BUDS, which was terrible for you. They don't even allow students to do it anymore because it was a very, very bad idea. I've got no range of motion in my neck. It is what it is. That affects my overhead position. I blew out my AC joint horrifically during a motorcycle wreck. Again, it's just, it is what it is. So yes, I'm 44 years old, which is not 55, but my body has a lot more miles on it than probably a lot of folks, which I wish that wasn't the case. Because of those things, I do deal with a daily level of chronic pain, but oh well, whoop-de-doo. I'm not, there's no woe is me story here, and I'm not complaining. The one benefit, if I was to say, what's the silver lining in all of this, is it has all those things that have happened to me or that I've experienced have made me truly focus on what is the most intelligent way to work out so that you treat your body well, so that you don't overdo it, so that you can work out for years and years, so that you don't make any injuries you may have worse, so that you don't get new injuries, and so that you maximize your time in the gym and get the absolute most fitness possible out of what we're doing. And that has given me a very unique and acute focus and perspective in that area. So that's it. That's basically it. So I am going to go get myself another cup of coffee. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. This will be living in our private Facebook group, and I will probably save it and put it up on the YouTube channel so you can have it for future reference and always go back to these things. And that's it. Today's rest day, Thursday. I highly encourage you to take it. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk again.